As you can see, one of the things is that we've got an 11,000 volt underground electricity supply and a 3-inch water main. Now, if all that was up there is what was up there now, that is to say, we have a Coast Guard station, and this is what is admitted. We have a Coast Guard station, and we have an O2 airwave reception station which controls O2 reception for the whole island, basically the mobile phone mast. It certainly doesn't need an 11,000 volt high current supply, and it would be insane to keep this because the maintenance costs on a monthly basis are enormous. So this raises a bit of a question as to what else might be up there. Well, I had a look around, and I'll tell you what I think is up there, and I think the locals are right. I think what is up there is a base. Now when you get to the Needles Park, the first thing you'll notice is a fun fair, and if you walk up this road past the Allen Bay glass shop, you'll come to a little lane, and you carry on up that lane, and that takes you up to what is called the Old Battery, which is a Napoleonic fort, which was also incidentally used in World War I and World War II for detonator on command mines that were laid in the Solent. And there was a guy in a lookout station with switches, and he'd turn the switch if he saw a German boat that happened to be near one of the mines, and bang. So anyway, we carry on up there, and the first thing we come to is a mysterious small brick building. And here it is. And there are a few odd things about this building. And one thing I'd like you to take some notice of, as will become apparent later, is we have this red beacon stuck on the front of it. And this is very unusual. Now, I've never seen one of these on say a Southern Electric transformer building or anything like that, and it's very unusual. There's another unusual thing which I'll come to in a moment, and that is if you look at the back of this building, you will see the one rather large cable which comes out of it, goes straight into the hill, doesn't head towards the end of the Needles at all, it comes straight out into the hill, and there is this mysterious black box with the word master written on it, and what looks like a place in the centre there, which could be a PIR detector, or it could be a place where you can put one of those keyless entry devices. And there's some beautiful views as you carry on walking up the track, but don't let that distract you from what else is there. So what's this? Suddenly in the middle of nowhere you've got a big lump of concrete with a piece of hardened steel, machined hardened steel, in the middle of it. And if we take a closer look, you will see that it's not rusty in the contact point here, and there's various scrapes around the outside of it indicating recent use. And what this is in fact the base for a small mobile crane, and according to my friend that was actually used during the building of it to haul very heavy materials and workshop machines up the side of the cliff from a boat in the sea below, so that these things could be brought in without the public ever seeing them. And immediately adjacent to that there is this area here which has been worn away from the side of the hill, and he said that this wear was caused by dragging 5 or 6 ton pieces of equipment up the hill on sleds. and I can quite believe it because the alignment is exact with that little, what I guess you call a pintle there. Now as you go further up, you will see behind these danger signs, you will see a Coast Guard station. And the Coast Guard station must be about the best equipped Coast Guard station I've ever seen. It's got radar, it's got radios, it's got range finders, it's got absolutely everything in there, and it's got two rather strange looking fellows permanently on duty in there. And probably the strangest thing about it is it's facing the wrong way. Yes, this is not facing directly out to sea towards France, this is actually facing the Needles, and it gives them a really good view of the British mainland. So obviously they're not so worried about boats that are coming from overseas. They're more worried about looking at who can see what is going on in the bay where the actual rocket establishment is. That's the only conclusion that I can come to from the alignment of this Coast Guard station. Behind the Coast Guard station we have what is actually on the Saunders Row map as an 11 kV substation. Now here's the substation. But what are these other buildings? If you've ever been to an RAF station and seen the control and command bunkers there, you will find that they share an uncanny similarity with these other buildings. And you go further on and you come to the actual rocket test site itself, which has three concrete sections, and there's one behind, and over the top of that you have what is called just an O2 repeater mast, and we'll come to that one in a moment. So here is the O2 repeater mast, and let's just zoom in a bit. And let's just have a look at the number and quality of antenna they've got. They have dipoles, not used on O2 repeater mast. They have whip aerials, also not used. They have this aerial array at the top, which is in fact an O2 repeater type array. They have these, unknown what they are, and they have directional microwave links. 3 of them, and the big one is the type that you see on military towers all over the place. So this is most likely not a straight O2 repeater station, but that's how it's listed, and there's some other oddities about that which we'll come to in a moment. So here's a good view across the actual rocket engine test site. There were at one time 3 test stands here, and the rocket engine was bolted down to a fixture which was on here and ignited, and it was thrust, fuel consumption and all these good things were measured, and you can still see in this black area down here where the flames actually hit the concrete, and the fumes were ducted through these rectangular ducts down into the hill, and they came out of all sorts of little vents on the cliffside here. And the reason for diffusing it like that was so that if an enemy did happen to be watching, and at the time this was going on there were Russian trawlers that were wandering around in this area, then they couldn't use the actual size of the plume and its velocity to calculate what the thrust of the missile might be, because they couldn't basically see it, which is quite a cunning thing to do, really. So there's this whole curved road here. Now according to my friend, this is actually the start of a roof which extends well into the hill, and beneath it are 3 layers of workshops and storage areas, other rooms, and he says it's a really big complex in there. And one of the quite interesting things is, if you're looking for how people might get in, there is, apart from the fact obviously there's Coast Guard cottages, which we'll come to, there is a little stairwell just here, still intact, fenced off with this tubular bars, but some of the bars have obvious wear on the paint, showing people climbing over to get in and into this building here. And I did think about going down there myself, but as soon as I got anywhere near it, the guys in the Coast Guard tower seemed to get very agitated and point binoculars in my direction, so I decided against that one. Very cowardly of me, I know. Right, and here's a view of the same area looking the other way, and you can see this vertical wall here which goes all the way along and is the edge of this building that my friend was talking about. And it's a nice view of the Needles, and you can see how the Coast Guard station is situated. Beautiful view of mainland Britain over here. France is off this way, and nice view of the Needles obviously, but also a very good view of whatever is going on in this area here. Now, to explain where this is, I need to go back and zoom in a bit. This is some fresh erosion on the hill here, and it's right next to this end test pad here. And why was I interested in this? Well, first of all, you've got other block work and cast concrete going straight into the side of the hill. That's the first thing. There's something else as well. Cables. These cables have been exposed and obviously broken, and I don't think that they were a part of the original rocket test rig. And the reason for that is the type of cables that they are. The rocket test rig was done in the late 1950s. These cables here are 1980s or later, and the reason I know that, the type of cable that they are, it's coaxial twin cable, and this blue insulation wasn't actually used until the 1980s to my knowledge, and the outside of the cables looks pretty damn pristine. And there's more than one bunch of these cables coming from this eroded area, and you can see here there's another bunch, and they line up with both these concrete blocks that disappear mysteriously into the hillside, and lo and behold the so-called O2 transmitter station at the top. Okay, so I scrambled up the hill to this O2 transmitter station, and there's an awful lot of equipment around it. Not just what's in here, but there's also subsidiary units around the outside, and there are more aerials even than you could actually see from that previous photograph. So let's zoom in on the labels and such like, and what can we glean from that? Standard health and safety, and we've got an airwave label telling you who to call if there's a problem, but there's no site number. So how do you tell them where they are? Well, obviously they only know that they've got one location up on the Needles, and that's it. There's a label here which is so faded you can hardly read it, which is an O2 one. However, here's what's interesting to me. These little things here are called interlock boxes. You have a key, and the key fits in the padlock, and you open up the box. And these are pretty standard on radio installations, and when you open the box there's a switch inside which automatically cuts off power, and then you get the key to this main door which is inside that box. And the thing that interests me is that there are two interlocks, so there is more than one system owned by more than one person on this site, and this box here is typical of the O2 sort of airwave type sites. This box here, I've seen these before on the outside of RAF military sites, so I would strongly suspect there was a military installation somewhere inside here. And it's a beautiful day and the views are lovely, and this is the view from behind that aerial, and as you can see the rest of the Isle of Wight, and it's about the highest point for quite some distance. Now here we're looking at the Coast Guard cottages, and this is the back of these Coast Guard cottages, and there are a few oddities about these supposed Coast Guard cottages, and one of the things I know about them is that they are not actually the Coast Guard cottages. If you look on Ordnance Survey maps that are really old, going back to the 1800s, sure, you'll see 3 Coast Guard cottages marked, but these aren't them. These are modern reproductions made to look like Victorian cottages. The brickwork's modern, and well, there is another giveaway. It's difficult to see from this photograph, but you'll see it in the next one. Oh look, what did we see on that earlier brick building down the hill? A red beacon. Is it normal to have one of these outside your house? I don't think so. Now, the other thing about these Coast Guard cottages is that they are in fact built on the rear of the roof of the bunker system for the rocket station, and this is the roof here. It's underneath this artificial mound of earth which goes the whole length of these 4 cottages, and various places around the walls of these cottages as well. There's quite a lot more electronics equipment than you'd actually expect. And here's a view from further away showing more of the size of this feature. It is pretty big. Now, this is an interesting picture because this shows you what I was telling you earlier. Here are the chimneys of the current Coast Guard cottages, and this is the platform or the roof of the bunker that's underneath them. And these ruins here are those original Coast Guard cottages that are on the Ordnance Survey map. Now if we go back to our mysterious 11 kV bunker, this is kind of a slit. It's almost like a blast, anti-blast feature. And at the end of it you have a locked door. To the right of it you have a grill, which is this area here is actually the 11 kV transformer, and the noise it's making has to be heard to be believed. Now 11,000 volt transformers and the like, they actually run quite quiet. In fact, there might be one near you. These step-down transformers are scattered around the country. They're deliberately designed to be quiet. There's only one situation when they're not quiet, and that's when they're providing an enormous amount of current. And this transformer, if the hum is to be believed, is operating at pretty near its maximum capacity. So what's it supplying? And as a last little aside, here we have another mysterious feature. Along the side of the road on the way back down, there is this concrete walled slit, and it looks reasonably innocent until you suddenly realise that this gate here is actually quite new, and you have a modern padlock. The hinges are oiled, so what on earth is it? By putting my camera right up next to it and using the flash, I got this picture, and basically what you have is you have pipe work, and this isn't the 3-inch water main that's on Saunders Road's maps, because that is a totally different place it's coming from, unless of course the map's just total fiction. And this tunnel, concrete line tunnel, goes straight back into the hill, further than my camera's flash can penetrate, and I would guess that is about the 25-30 metre mark in there. So that is very peculiar, because this tunnel lines up with no surface features at all. It just goes straight back into the hill, heading for nothing. So these are all signs that there is something down there. These are all signs that something is going on. And just before I go, I'll repeat to you what the locals think is going on. They think it's quite convenient to have one of these bases near a fun fair, because around this area, even in the winter time, there are lots of people walking, and what they think is that 1 or 2 people every day walk up to the hill and don't come back, and that 1 or 2 people every day walk down the hill who never went up there. And this is how you could have a base of several hundred people, with maybe everyone staying down there for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and hide it completely from the public. And what would be the motivation for putting this base here? It's quite simple. Everybody now has spy satellites, and if you were to put in a base somewhere else, they would notice all the digging, and they would notice all the construction. Well, this base was already constructed at a time when the Russians didn't have a myriad spy satellites overhead, so therefore nobody has any idea about how big it is, nobody has any idea about what might be down there, or what the purpose of the base is. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you very much.
Well, you could subscribe to our Arduinotronic, or just go jump in a lake.